So I currently, I live in Kentucky. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. That's what I do professionally. I love bodybuilding. Unfortunately, it is not my career. So I have an entire life outside of bodybuilding that, it doesn't get shown on social media as much. So yeah, I'm married. We've been married for 5 years, and I have a little dog. That's my child. Well, he's not little. He's like 60 pounds, but
pretty good sized dog.
Yeah, he's a good boy.
What kind of dog is it?
So he's actually an Irish Doodle, an Irish Setter, and Poodle mix. People think he's a Golden Doodle, but I don't usually correct them. It's not much of a difference.
Looks pretty similar.
Yeah, it does.
Gotcha. Those are pretty cute.
Yes.
They're from the few that I've interacted with, they have high energy, but they have like a real capacity to like actually learn and be good.
Yes. He's a great dog. I have no complaints. He's very goofy. I think that's a doodle thing. So, but he's a very good dog, and he's definitely chilled out a lot. He had a lot of energy as a puppy, of course.
Yeah. I feel like there's almost like a nature in those kind of dogs where it's like they know that they're doing something and like they know they probably shouldn't be doing it sometimes, but then that you can tell that like, oh, I know.
Yeah, he does. Absolutely. He just, hangs his head and he's like, I'm sorry. That's what I imagine he's saying. Anyway.
So you said that you're a social worker.
Yeah. What
led you down that route? Like, is that something that you always kind of saw yourself doing, or what was that? No.
So I actually, when I graduated high school, I planned to go to dental school, and I got to college and realized that science isn't really for me in regards to like chemistry. I enjoyed biology, but there were just certain things that I realized it wasn't really a good fit for me. And so I had taken an abnormal psychology class my first semester, and I really enjoyed it. And I started just kind of researching different ways to be in the mental health field. And that led me to social work because one reason I chose social work, there's such a wide variety of jobs that you can have. I have personally just been in the mental health field since I've been working, but you can do all sorts of things with social work. And so I do have a passion for not just helping people. Really what I'm passionate about is empowering people to have the knowledge and skill set to accomplish things on their own, if that makes sense. So
yeah. And where do you feel like that came from, though? Was it something that you feel like you didn't know or have like an access to when you were growing up, or like where did the want to make people aware of this come from?
Yeah. There's a lot of like personal experience I have with mental health in regards to family members, even myself. And so just in my own experience, how empowering it was to learn certain things and kind of figure out, okay, this is how I can cope with this, and this is how I can overcome this or manage this. It just became clear to me, like, I want to help someone else experience that. And I think the conversation around mental health now is a lot better, but at the time there was still a lot of stigma around mental health and people seeking help.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting because I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, is there any topic in the world or anything in the world that people just all agree on? And it's like there should, you'd almost think that there should be, like if there's such a thing as a fact, and there should be something that people typically tend to agree on. And other than like the basics, like if I throw a ball up, it's going to come down. But even to that, like there's people who are like, well, why does it happen? Or they don't agree, on all kinds of different things on that. But like, it seems like that there is more access and information on mental health, but there's also a lot of opinions on mental health too now.
Absolutely. I think there are definitely a lot of different views on how to handle certain things, what's appropriate. Some people think you can just get over things, or just change your mindset, have a positive attitude. And I'm not saying that those things don't have an impact, but if your brain chemistry is not where it should be, there's only so much you can't will yourself out of certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And for you, did you ever, going into it, did you have a time to overcome your own thoughts about it as well?
Well, I think, of course, we all have our own bias, whether we realize it or not. And, that's a really good question. I think for me, the biggest, maybe, I don't know if lesson is the right word, but once I got into the field and started working with people, realizing that not everyone does want help. Some people want to stay where they are. And maybe that was a big lesson for me, that I can't make that decision for them. They have to make the decision to change, if that.
Yeah. And do you think that stems from like people, like the devil versus the devil you don't a lot of times? Absolutely.
You live in a certain mindset for so long, and that feels comfortable. It feels scary. Change is scary, even good change. So for some people, I think it is more comfortable to stay where they are because they know it and they've learned their own ways of managing it, even if it's not the best way to manage it.
Yeah. And did you know exactly kind of what you wanted to do when you were getting into that field, or were you like, I just know I want to help some way?
No, I had no clue. I just knew, and honestly, I thought that I would be like a mental health counselor for a long time. Right now, I'm not really in that role. I don't have clients, but I enjoy what I do. So I'm in more of an administrative role. I work with our staff really closely. And to be honest, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy helping people develop as professionals and seeing them grow. So.
And does the world of mental health reach over into the world of athletics in a way that people may not think that it does?
Absolutely. And I'll just speak from my personal experience. For me, when I started my, health journey, you'll want to call it, one, I underestimated how much nutrition played into my overall well-being. And two, I just so quickly saw the benefits of not just exercising and, the chemicals that release with that, but also being in a routine, having structure. For me, it's been a game changer. So it, one, component of it is the way that it helps you manage your own mental illness, but also, at least in competitive bodybuilding, you will see that mindset. Your mindset matters, and the mental game is so much harder than the physical. So you really have to have that managed in a healthy spot, to be able to be successful.
Yeah. And are some of the tools that you learned and, maybe help other people understand, are they very similar to the ones that you can utilize and be like, okay, I may not be using this to the same extent that somebody that is going through a tougher real mental health battle is going through, but I understand like how these things work and understand the kind of the X's and O's of it, so I can tinker with that within my own mind for this other thing as well?
Absolutely. I'm trying to think of a really good example. But I think mostly it's just understanding that. Again, I'll speak personally. For me, just because I'm feeling a certain way doesn't mean I have to react a certain way. So if I'm in prep, for example, and I'm just having a really tough day, that doesn't mean I have to throw all the progress away that I've worked for and, make a decision that could really negatively impact my prep. But instead just move forward and know, okay, think of the long-term goal and what's important.
Yeah. So. Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
When you're working with clients in that, it's the idea of being aware and even labeling, this is the emotion or thought that I'm experiencing without judging it. And like you were saying, not reacting so quickly to it, but just, I feel anxious, period. Not, I feel anxious and kind of spiraling. So. Gotcha.
And so moving kind of into the world of fitness for you, when did that become a thing for you?
So I'm not an athlete. I don't have an athletic background. I did not play sports my whole life. I always think, I'm sure people I went to school with when I was younger, they probably, if they see me now, they're probably like, what in the world? Are you serious? But in college, I would work out some. I had a really, I would say, negative relationship with food. There was some restrictive eating, and then there would be periods where I just didn't really care about what I was intaking. But where my fitness journey really started, when I met my now husband, the gym was very important to him. And also the job he had at the time, he didn't have a lot of free time. He was kind of working a lot. And so it was really one of our only places that we could spend time together was the gym. I'm like, okay, this is important to him. I just wanted to hang out with him. So I started going, and I was very uncomfortable at first. Just kind of felt like I didn't know what I was doing. And so I was thankful to have him kind of show me around, teach me some basic movements. And it just kind of progressed very naturally from there. It became a routine, something I looked forward to. And at one point, I was thinking about this recently. He was doing deadlifts, and I had never done that move. I didn't even know what a deadlift was. He was just warming up. And I was like, I want to see if I can lift that. And of course, he's like, well, please don't hurt yourself. But I was able to lift it. I don't even remember how much weight it was, but at the time it was impressive to me. And I just that was it for me. I just kind of was like, this is awesome. I really like this. It just felt, again, empowering. I guess that's my word of the day. But I didn't really start taking things seriously until around 2020. That was when I started working with Tyler. And I vividly remember, of course, this was during COVID. It was, everything shut down in March, and this was around May. I was sitting in our guest room, and I was just so upset. I was unhappy, and it wasn't just with myself. There were a lot of situational things going on that I just was unhappy with. And I had looked into working with Tyler before, but kind of felt like it wasn't in the budget. And I was talking with my husband about how unhappy I was, and he's like, if you feel like this is really going to make a difference, then let's do it. I fully support you in this. And so I reached out to Tyler, and I was able to start working with him pretty quickly. So I started working with him in May 2020, and really started learning the fundamentals of nutrition, how to train. At that point, I had been in and out of the gym for probably 3 years, but I didn't know how to train. I originally just signed up for 4 months, and I thought, okay, I'll do this. I'll hopefully have a cool transformation, and that will be that. I had honestly no idea what was in store for me. Competitive bodybuilding. I didn't even know what an IFBB Pro was. I didn't know what the figure division was. But I quickly saw not only physical results, but mental results, like I was talking about, just an improvement all around. And so once my 4 months was up, I was like, no, I'm in this. I want to do this. And I still didn't have an interest in competing. Ironically, when I first did my like intake stuff as a new client, Tyler had mentioned if you would be interested in competing, like you have a good structure for it. And I remember emailing him back and being like, never say never, but probably never. And I also said, if I did, I would want to do wellness, which is just hilarious because I do not fit in wellness at all. I love the look of wellness, but I'm definitely meant for figure. So yeah, I mean, it was just a very natural progression. I became, I don't know if addicted is the right word, but I guess it is. I loved what I was seeing in the gym. I loved how it impacted me. And, I had been working with him at about a year. People had asked me, if I was going to compete, and I would continue to say no, because honestly, I didn't really have an interest in prep. It sounded not that fun to me. I don't really love attention. So the thought of being on stage was just really terrifying. It just did not feel like something that was meant for me. And then it was April 2021. I just decided, why not? Why not try it? Up until then, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe there was any way I could not have, dessert and eat this very specific meal plan for 20 weeks. I thought there's no way I can do that. And yeah, I can't really explain what changed, but I just decided to try it.
And you mentioned the word addiction, and I think it's funny, but it's so relatable to people who, whether you're in bodybuilding or just some area of fitness, because, we go about our life and we have these routines and these habits, but for most of us, they're not really doing anything for us, right? And then when we start to get into fitness, and then with bodybuilding, it's maybe even more pronounced because you have like a timeline goal, and then you're competing, so you can kind of stack things up in that way. But when you start to see that your habits and the things that you're doing are actually making you feel good and doing something for you, like in some sort of progress kind of way, I think that it does become addicting because it gives your life, it gives things that you're doing. Not that your life didn't have a purpose before, but it gives that literally every single thing that you're doing a purpose.
Absolutely. And I think also it's one of those things, you build the habit, it becomes so ingrained in your routine, and you're seeing positive impacts across your entire life. You feel better, you move better, you have more energy. To me, that helps me engage in my relationships in a better way. So I definitely, I have the kind of personality, if I do something, I do it 100%. And I definitely jumped all in with bodybuilding. And I don't regret that at all. I think it's only added to my life in so many positive ways.
So when you go back in time to when you first really started to get into the gym, what do you feel like your main motivation then was? We were talking about you went to the gym in college a little bit and things like that. Was it something where you were like, I have like a plan here, or was it more of like everybody else is kind of doing this at this point, or really what pushed you, and then what was kind of your motivation there?
Definitely when I was younger, the motivation was entirely I want to look a certain way. And, okay, everyone is going to the gym and eating the certain way, and that's how they're going to look a certain way. I would say that has entirely changed, in that as I've seen the impacts on how it helps me, not only mentally, but just, I think once you realize the power of being disciplined, everything changes.
And for you, did you really recognize that those things were happening then, or was it more of just like, I'm doing this?
No, it was, and that's what I like when I talk to people who are just starting their own fitness journey. I did not love what I was eating at first. I didn't love pushing myself hard in the gym. It's uncomfortable. I didn't like it. But I had committed to 4 months, and I felt like I owed it to myself to really see what could happen in those 4 months.
At the beginning of those 4 months, you said it was like 2020, right?
Yes.
What obviously that's like right during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the structure around things then, and how did you manage to make things happen at that point?
So when I think it was the first month, the gyms were still closed. So I had home workouts, which I hate home workouts. I love being in the gym, being around people. I just like the energy that comes from being in the gym. But I did them, and I did them to the best of my ability. So, of course, my nutrition, that has always kind of looked the same, but that was different, the structure of that. And then I guess it was June, the gyms reopened, and then I really started learning how to train in the gym.
And because, you're going from home workouts to a gym workout, there's obviously a lot more opportunity for mixing things up and different machines and things. And for you, was getting back into the gym at that point, did you feel like you had some confidence because it's like, I've been doing something and I at least have some workout experience in a gym? Or maybe was there also a sense of overwhelm because it's like, okay, I now have this coach who's telling me to do all these things that maybe I have never done before? Like, where were you coming into the gym?
Yeah, so I had been, like I said, I had been in the gym just kind of not with a real purpose for a little bit. And thankfully, I had been going to that particular gym for a few years, so I felt comfortable because I kind of knew everyone. But prior to working with Tyler, I had I was nowhere near a competitive bodybuilder, but that was kind of the training style that I had. I was really focused on gaining strength. And in some ways, I'm just going to be totally honest. I looked down on bodybuilding. I was like, that's just ridiculous. They only care about what they look like. That I don't want to train that way. So I think it was my own judgment, which is terrible, that made me feel a little self-conscious when I started changing how I worked out. And there was some overwhelming feelings because it was some movements I didn't know or wasn't comfortable with, and I didn't want to look stupid. And, I'm a normal person with gym anxiety just like anyone else. So.
And did you have any fear of like, oh man, what are other people going to think because now I'm doing this kind of training and I am pushing myself like pretty hard that maybe people have never seen me do before? Like, was there any sense of I want to do this to the full that I can do it? But I think as whatever it is as human beings, when we do that, we also put a little bit of our ego on the line.
Absolutely. And I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser. I have been a people pleaser my whole life. And, as I've gotten older the past few years, I've really grown in that and learned that it really doesn't matter. And I will 100% credit bodybuilding as a huge catalyst in that change in my mindset. But at first I was concerned about what other people thought, not just in training, but also in my nutrition, going out and choosing different things whenever I was eating at a restaurant, or when I was a lifestyle client, I didn't do this as much, but, packing your own food to events. I was just really concerned with what people thought. I didn't want people to have, I don't even know what I thought they were going to say, but I didn't want to have to explain myself. So there was definitely that component of I'm worried about what people will think. And that grew even stronger once I decided to compete. And now I don't, I'm doing this for me. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
People's input. So
I think it's funny how we have I think it's weird because the people who think, what are these other people going to think, oftentimes are the ones who don't have a lot of judgment on what other people do anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's weird how we think that other people are going to think that, But then we don't think that when it comes to other people.
Exactly. I mean, 100%. You know, I'm not in the gym looking around at people thinking all sorts of negative things. I'm just letting them do their thing, just like I'm doing my own thing. But yes, most of the time people have these concerns about what others think. And for the majority, I think people aren't thinking. And if they are thinking something negative, that's on them. I mean, that shouldn't stop you from pursuing what you're interested in.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of weird, but we live kind of in this world where we care what other people think so much, but it's a lot of times only when we're doing something that's different. And today's different is like a lot of times doing something that's good for us.
Yeah, I think when we're doing kind of what everyone else is doing, you don't really think about what others are thinking of you. But like you said, when you're doing something different, and bodybuilding is different, especially being a competitor, there are just things that I have to do differently and may seem weird. So,
and after those first 4 months, and you're like, oh, I want to keep doing this. Mm-hmm. Did you have any of like any fear, any of like a feeling of anxiousness going in to be like, okay, now he kind of knows that I want to do this, and is there going to be another level that he like unlocks on me?
Honestly, Tyler's like the most chill person. And so in those 4 months, we had developed a really good working relationship. So I really had grown to trust him a lot at that point. And I was just kind of like, you know, you have the reins. Let's see what we can do. Still only lifestyle. But I think the whole time he probably had in mind, you know, a certain goal. I just wasn't able to see it as quickly as he did. So, yeah.
Were you or are you a person who has a lot of questions, though, even though you might be someone who is like, do what you want to do?
1,000%. I mean, I'm laughing because I ask a lot of questions. I want to understand why I'm doing it, and how it's going to help or change, or, you know, I'm not asking it because I don't believe it's what I should be doing. I just want to understand it. I'm also very concerned about doing things correctly, so I will ask a lot of clarification questions.
Gotcha. And because you have obviously the first part of your journey was lifestyle. Mm-hmm. When you got into the bodybuilding side of things, did that even like confuse you a little bit? Because first thing, you know, things were like, this is what we're doing, and we're doing them maybe for these reasons. But then bodybuilding is a little bit different, obviously, because you're still putting an emphasis, like you have to be a healthy person, but especially in that prep stage, it's not your main focus anymore. Did you have any like concern or any thoughts about that?
I mean, honestly, I'm really thankful that I had that year of lifestyle before I transitioned into being a competitor, because like I said, I had learned the fundamentals. I had learned why it was important to fuel my body in a certain way, the importance of nutrient timing. I had learned how to train and how to train with intensity. And so really it wasn't a huge change until prep started, because it just meant I had a little more, you know, with lifestyle, there's a little more leniency, and there were a little higher expectations of how I would, like adhere to the plan. But I didn't have any concerns. I really kind of went in, I think it was probably good. I like I said, I was really unfamiliar with the bodybuilding world, so I didn't know some of the things, so I did have to ask questions about why are we doing this? But concerns, no.
Gotcha. And you kind of mentioned like the expectations that things are going to be a little bit more adherence. Mm-hmm. Did you ever think, kind of going into it, let me see what it's like, and then we'll see after that if it's something that I really want to do? Or was it kind of like, once I commit to this, not that you're like committing forever, like I have to do it, but did you see yourself as like more of like a trial run, or more of like a, let me really put myself into this world and give it a true, few shows or a year, whatever kind of shot?
No, it was definitely, once I commit to this, I'm going to do it 100%. I mean, and I think I wanted to know if I liked it, if it was something I wanted to continue doing in the future, but I wanted to, execute the plan as perfectly as I could.
And like whenever you're sitting and looking at a plan, looking at like, okay, this is what I have to do for the next X amount of weeks. Yeah. Is that something for you that you kind of take and think about it in smaller terms and break it down? Or is that something where you're like, okay, if I do break it down, it might become more intimidating, but if I think about it in regards to like this big picture, then it's easier to get through? Which one do you feel like you do more?
It kind of depends on the phase. With prep, it can be overwhelming to me at the start to think, okay, I'm going to do this for 20, which my prep this summer ended up being 26 weeks because we ended up doing Universe. And if I had known in the beginning that it was going to be 26 weeks, I mean, that would have been very overwhelming to me.
And then when you got into like the bodybuilding side of it, and you did you start then to like interact more with the bodybuilding side of his community, or what is it kind of like a one community anyway?
I didn't really interact with the bodybuilding community at all until probably after my first show. And that was just because, like the gym I was training at, there weren't a lot of bodybuilders there. And I was still really uncertain of if I belonged, if that makes sense. I didn't see myself as a bodybuilder still. And so I didn't really start interacting with people until I had competed that first time. And especially after the Derby show, I had met a lot of people and started becoming more like entwined in the community here.
Gotcha. And feeling like, are you a bodybuilder yet? Asking yourself that question. Did that come from a place more of like you felt like you needed to earn that, or did you feel like you just truly didn't belong, like didn't have that title, even though you've been doing it?
I think it was maybe a mixture. One, I hadn't officially competed, and so I thought it's not real until I compete. And part of it was my own insecurity, thinking, am I really good enough to do this? Are people going to look at me and think, oh yeah, she's a bodybuilder, or are they going to be like, no way? So it was a little of both. There's definitely, like I said, I'm a normal person. I have anxieties and insecurities and all that good stuff. So
along your first prep, did you have any of those anxieties and things like that? And if so, like how did you mentally work through those? And did you implement any new habits or any new routines to help do that?
To be honest, my first prep was really easy. And I don't know if that's because I didn't know what to expect. I just followed the plan 100% and results were coming. And so, I think part of it is I hadn't really met anyone in the bodybuilding world. So I was just doing my own thing in my own world. There wasn't really like pressure to perform at a certain level or have certain results. I was very private. To me, I was seeing positive results. And so there was like that positive reinforcement. I'm following the plan. I'm seeing the results. I'm going to keep doing that because it felt good. So
more towards your second prep and things like that, where you knew like it's going to be a certain thing at a certain point. And maybe is that really what a lot of it stems from for a lot of bodybuilders, is like just the fear of knowing like, oh man, I'm not going to be very comfortable soon, or I'm not going to be able to sleep very well soon, or I'm not going to, have like my normal personality potentially soon. Like, is it more of the fear of those things that makes it so hard?
For me, this second prep, I don't think it was the fear of those things. In some strange way, I enjoy those things, not the personality part. I don't, it's really hard to be yourself when you're so in a deficit and just your cardio's high and all that good stuff. But pushing myself and seeing how far I can go, I enjoy that. And so for me, I think this prep was hard. I felt a lot of pressure, and most of that I put on myself to turn pro. I mean, that's just how it is. And my body was entirely different at the start of this prep than at the start of my first prep. And I didn't see results in the same way as quickly. And so that really got in my head that I was doing something wrong. And I struggled in that way, but it wasn't knowing that it's hard. It wasn't knowing what's coming. It was just kind of how things played out for me this past year. So, and I think it was, okay, my body's not responding like it did the first time. What if it doesn't respond at all? It was kind of knowing what to expect, and those things weren't happening. And then it just became a weird mental game.
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. And then stepping on stage for the first time for you, tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, the thought of being on stage was terrifying. My first show, I was super, super nervous. But I had been working with Laura as my posing coach for almost a year by the time my first show happened. So I felt very prepared. I knew what to do. I knew my routine. I knew I was going to be able to hold my mandatories. And that helped so much with the whole process. But stepping on stage the first time at prejudging, I just knew that this was something I was going to do for a while.
And coming off stage, what were the emotions there and what were the feelings? And like, was there a sense of it at all, like a sense of relief that you kind of had that first one under your belt?
Definitely relieved that I at least knew what to expect, because that's why I was so nervous that first show. And it was just because I didn't know exactly how things would go, how I would feel. But honestly, after my first show, after prejudging, I was a little disappointed because I was the only person in my class. And so there wasn't anyone to compare me to. And so for me, I wanted to know where I stood. And there was that feeling of disappointment that, okay, yeah, I won my class of one. So does it even count? But it did. That meant I was in the overall. And I obviously did not win the overall there. And that really, I don't view myself as a competitive person, to be honest, or I didn't at that time, but something about losing, it just flipped a switch inside me, and I changed pretty quickly between that show and my second show, because I just was very intense. So
yeah, I think there's something evolutionary about like when you lose, especially when you're putting so much effort into the thing that you lose at. It's like you put all this energy and time into something, your brain and body really don't know that it's bodybuilding. It probably thinks like, oh man, I just like didn't, get to kill that animal or whatever, So it's like, and now I need to become better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a sore loser. I definitely can recognize when people beat me and that they're better than me, but I am bad at losing because it does just, I don't know anyone who likes losing, but something primal happens inside, and I'm just like, okay, no, never again. So, yeah.
And then after that, when you did get into the bodybuilding community more, how did that change things for you?
Honestly, that has been such a positive experience. I think in Kentucky, the bodybuilding community, like, we're kind of small, but everyone is really positive and encouraging. I have not had a negative experience. And it was definitely helpful to finally connect with people who were doing the same thing as me and could relate to what I was feeling, because that first prep, I didn't really connect with anyone, and so I felt very alone in that. And so once I started meeting people and realizing, oh, hey, I'm not alone in this, and we're all kind of in this together, it definitely helped.
Yeah. And how did interacting with other athletes who obviously aren't your coach as well, because your coach, it's like that's the person who is giving you like the plan and you're reporting to, and you're, there's a certain level of like expectation there. And obviously honesty too is important with your coach, but like, did you feel like you could also like open up in a different way to someone who is an athlete but also isn't your coach?
To some degree, it is a different kind of relationship because they're not coaching you. And I mean, I guess in some way you may feel a little more freedom, but for me, having worked with Tyler as long as I have, I do view him as more than a coach. He's someone that I can be 100% honest with, and I know he's going to be 100% honest with me. So I would say I'm more honest with him than with others, if that makes sense.
Makes sense, yeah. For that coaching relationship, did you feel like that there was a period of time where you were kind of like, or maybe even more, he was learning you in terms of like what motivated you, how he, like what specifically would push you in the right direction? Because there's so many people with different personalities of like, some people need to be, pushed in a more direct way, some people indirect. Like, did you feel like that there was a time period there where, there was just that learning period?
Absolutely. We were learning each other's styles, and I think that's one thing that makes him such a great coach is he's able to do that pretty quickly, I think, and he's really able to adapt his style to like you said, motivate people in the way that's best for them. Because for some people, being really hard on them is just going to make them shut down. For some people, being really hard on them is going to kind of kick them into gear to really do what they're supposed to do. And, the longer that we work together, the more that I'm able to handle that direct sort of communication. And honestly, it's what I need at this point. So there was definitely a period of learning each other.
After that first show, you said you didn't really get to compete against people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in the overall, but did you really look forward to and take a lot of like the feedback from the judges and really kind of utilize that, I guess, the most out of that whole experience?
I did. We did take the feedback, but kind of already knew what I needed to be more competitive. I mean, honestly, I was very small that first season. And so we knew that going in, that conditioning was really going to have to carry me. And yeah, but I will say the time period between the shows was the hardest of the first prep for me. I don't know how to explain it. It's like you get that adrenaline, you get this really exciting experience to compete, and then you're right back into prep. And that was hard for me.
And what were some of the expectations or some of the, conversations being had around that first off season?
No, actually, as soon as I stepped off stage at Derby, we kind of knew what the plan was. I definitely needed more back. Back is really important in figure. And at that point, we knew that I could get the level of conditioning that was necessary. It was just I needed to add some size. And so, yeah, we stepped off the stage at Derby and kind of knew, okay, our plan is Junior USA's next year. So let's take this time and really capitalize and grow as much as you can until then.
And was there that sense of like, I can be competitive though, even though you didn't really get to compete a lot against, people of the same, level or time in the sport or things like that? Did you feel like it from your own perspective after that, or even after that first season, that like, okay, I now have kind of a good grasp on like what my future may hold for me here?
I think so. After my second show, there were multiple people in my class, and that just kind of solidified that I wanted to keep doing this. And I will say, in some ways, I thought, okay, I could be really good at this. And in other ways, I was like, are you sure? And so that was really where I just kind of trusted Tyler, because he said, he told me then that I had the potential to earn my pro card. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. But there was definitely still doubt and uncertainty if I would be able to actually do that.
So do you feel like he truly believed it before you did?
1,000%. Yeah.
I guess that was just more from his end with the experience and your end with I mean, it's you're in your own shoes. Sometimes, regardless of where you are, I think it's hard to see your own potential sometimes.
It is. And like I said, I was still not even sure if I could call myself a bodybuilder. I mean, I just felt like I was so new in the sport, and there was just a lot of, can I really do this? But also, I'm going to work as hard as I can to do this.
In between, I guess after that first season, were there things that you started to change or implement new things, whether that be within your recovery or maybe taking different things and experimenting with them to see how they reacted with your body, maybe with certain training or different food, or was there a lot of that going on just to kind of, because you're so new still in it?
Not necessarily new things. I was just a lot more disciplined in how I kind of managed myself, if that makes sense. That first, it was the spring of 2021 that I decided to compete, and then we didn't compete until 2022. So leading up until that 2022 prep, I still didn't fully understand I don't know if understand is the right word, but when we were growing, I wouldn't always finish all my food or things like that. And I was just I took it a lot more seriously. That's the best way to put it.
Was it still almost coming from the perspective of old thoughts and old beliefs then at that point?
I would say it was just not fully understanding the importance of certain things.
Gotcha.
So it was just being kind of immature in the sport, if that makes sense.
So seeing your food as more like hunger versus fuel.
Yes.
In a sense.
Yeah, definitely. And understanding, okay, I have to eat this for my muscles to grow and I need my muscles to grow. So it was, that makes it sound really basic, but it kind of is.
Yeah.
I'm definitely one of those people, you tell me the plan and I'm like, okay, that means I have to do that. So not that I'm perfect, because I'm not, but that's kind of just how my mind works.
Yeah. And, talking about perfection, was that something that you had to overcome? Was the idea that perfection, obviously you want to be as perfect as you can, but there may be times when you're not. Was that a challenge for you at all?
I would say yes. I'm pretty hard on myself. So for me, that was hard. And
is that just experience of knowing when you're not perfect in the moment, it feels like the worst thing ever, but then you realize you kind of get to a point to where obviously everything does play a role and percentages do add up, but a fraction of a percent isn't going to be the end of the world if you get back on track. Don't let it become the rest of the day or the rest of the week, things that continue to pile up.
Yeah, I think definitely it was learning, okay, you ate something you shouldn't, get back to plan. Just keep it simple. Get back to plan.
And you mentioned posing being something that you felt very confident in.
Mm-hmm.
Was there an aspect of the show or even still aspects of show day that you're still kind of not completely, maybe you don't love or you're not completely confident or comfortable with?
I would say that the more I compete, the more comfortable I am. It's just kind of knowing, okay, how are the expediters going to run the show backstage, what to expect next. But each time I do it, I feel more comfortable.
And competing in locally versus competing against people who may be from all parts of a region or the country, how is that different? And maybe it's different whether that be obviously more competitive, but also it's you maybe have to travel or you maybe have to all of those things. Is there anything that you prefer or don't prefer in those?
Not necessarily. So my first ever show was actually in Orlando, so we traveled for that. And I didn't have, no one traveled with me, so it was just me and my husband. I will say one thing I definitely prefer is to have someone with me backstage. At my second show, there were multiple, it was local. There were multiple Bedson competitors there. Tyler and Laura were backstage. So that helped me relax so much. And even this past year, I competed at Junior USA's, which figure went first, so we weren't backstage for a whole long period of time. But at Universe, they were both back there with me, and it just really helped me relax. So I definitely prefer to have someone back there kind of chat with, so I'm not just sitting there thinking about, I'm about to step on stage.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's less distractions at a show that's further away?
Somewhat, but I think because we're so attached to our phones, I mean, it's the same. Social media is always there, so.
Yeah. And is that ever something that you struggle with, just the social media aspect of bodybuilding?
Definitely. So it's just really easy to of course, we only post the good things, and I totally understand that. I mean, it's not like I get on social media and post a bunch of negative stuff, but it can be hard to remember, okay, this is someone's highlight reel. This is their post, that's a certain angle. It's a certain lighting. And I definitely, for me, I just want to come across as genuine on social media. And so I really overthink a lot. Like, should I post this? Should I not?
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran-owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout. I think that it's tough because you don't want to be like a negative person online, obviously, but you also don't want to, like, how do you be authentic without oversharing and without creating like a negative environment? I think that's a tough balance to find.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's possible, but definitely tough.
Yeah. And whether that be with a more local or a show that's further away, do you feel like that there's a sense for you that you're representing Bedson, Built by Bedson, as well as yourself too?
Absolutely. I don't want to step on stage and be a poor representation. So there's definitely that. And then whenever I'm outside of Kentucky, obviously feeling like I'm representing Kentucky bodybuilding, and wanting to be a good representation. So
what do you feel like, if you have had any feelings or from other people surrounding Kentucky bodybuilding, what do you feel like that the what's the right word, not stigma, what do you feel like the kind of the reputation out there is?
I don't think I've had enough interactions to really know. So I haven't had any negative sort of stigmas, anything like that.
Is that something that is talked about, not necessarily just Kentucky, but this, any given states, or like, is that something that's not super common to hear about, or maybe like, oh, these teams or these people are coming from this state, so they're probably going to be, not that it really even matters particularly where you're from, but do you feel like there's more of like a certain something around states that may be bigger in the sport of bodybuilding, maybe like a Florida or a Texas or a California, just the bigger states in general?
Yeah. I think to some degree, I mean, but for the most part, it's not like you really know where the other competitors are from, unless you're stalking their social media, which isn't encouraged. So I wouldn't say that necessarily plays a role. Maybe for me, it would be more of knowing who their coach is, if it's like a really good coach, than knowing that they're going to be peaked properly and bring their best on stage. So
yeah. And was there a lot of like pro talk and pro expectations surrounding this most previous season for you?
Yes.
Was that something that was challenging to kind of deal with at all?
To a degree. I mean, I just felt pressure to perform well, and I knew as long as I was bringing my best, as long as I executed the plan, no one was going to be disappointed in me. So it wasn't like I thought people were going to be upset if I didn't turn pro this year. It was just more, like I said, I put a lot of pressure on myself because it was something I really wanted, and something I wanted to accomplish. So it definitely made this prep different, because it was like, okay, people, obviously my first season, no one knew who I was because I had never competed before. So now people know who I am. There's a certain expectation as far as I got really conditioned my first season, so I need to get really conditioned this season.
And when you kind of make that mindset shift yourself, like, this is something that I think I can achieve. This is something that I'm holding myself kind of accountable to achieve, at least, as much as I can. Do you see yourself starting to not have to, like, hold yourself back from, like, doing what you should do, but hold yourself back from doing more than you should do? Did that ever become like oh man, well, I really want to become pro, so if I do an extra set, maybe that'll help me, or if I eat this extra thing or don't eat this extra thing, maybe that'll help me? Or did you ever have any of those thoughts?
Not really, because it had been pretty ingrained in me that I need to just follow the plan as it's written. And, Tyler will make adjustments from there. He can't make appropriate adjustments if I'm doing extra or doing less. So I kind of knew I was only going to hurt myself if I did that.
And did you ever want to ask for those adjustments?
I mean, yes and no. There are definitely periods where I'm like, okay, can we be done with this phase? But overall, like I said, I really trust him, so I know that he's going to write a better plan than I can, but definitely. So I'm just going to trust him to do his job that he's great at.
Yeah. And then kind of finally getting a little bit into this, 2023, when you're stepping on stage for the first time for the new season, was there a feeling of like, let's go out there and, like, let's be a pro before we're a pro, or let's, like, feel like that, or take this thing to the next level, or was it more along the lines of, like, let's just continue to be who we are and feel like how we feel and kind of accept that, and then you'll get the outcome that you get, kind of thing?
It definitely, I had the mindset of, I think there's value in kind of, if you want to be a pro, you need to act like a pro, you need to live like a pro. But at the same time, accepting, okay, if I continue to do these things like I'm supposed to, then it will happen when it's meant to. And so maybe a mix of those, definitely I think there's value in taking everything seriously, living as if you're a pro before you are, and knowing, okay, if I do that, then eventually I will be.
So what is, saying and becoming and just being, like, having the status of IFBB Pro really mean to you? And, like, how does that impact you, even just on, like, a psychological level?
This is a great question. So in some ways it still doesn't feel real. And I don't know if that's because I haven't competed as a pro. But to me, it's a representation of, you can absolutely do what you set your mind to. And it's also a representation of how important it is to have people surrounding you who believe in you and support you and can see what you're capable of before you can. Because like I said, when I started this journey, I didn't know what an IFBB Pro was. Definitely didn't think I had the potential to become one. So, I mean, honestly, it means so much to me to be able to say that, just because I know the work that went into it.
Because you have, like, this title of being, pro athlete, does that make you feel like a weirdness at all? Like, just as, like, because it's not like a common title, right? But you've earned it, and, like, it's cool too in the sport of bodybuilding that people can earn this title, whether that be, at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50, like at any kind of age. Like, you can go out there and earn the title of professional athlete. There's
definitely a weirdness. I mean, sometimes I laugh before I say it because I'm like, this just sounds insane. How is this even true of me? But it is definitely an honor and a privilege. And I think it is, so I'm 31, and I was 30 technically when I turned pro. So the fact that 30-year-old me turned pro, I mean, that's pretty cool. I think it's awesome that you can start at any age. Of course, there's different barriers depending on your age, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Yeah. And is there like a level of expectation or like a level that now that I have this title, I have to kind of like show up differently to how I do things, just to kind of, in a way, I guess, in a sense, honor this title too?
Absolutely. There is definitely a different level of expectation as to how I kind of live my life, because I want to have a successful career as a pro. It's not something that, I earned this, checked a box, now I'm done. This is kind of just the beginning. So there is a certain expectation to present myself in a certain manner, and I mean, I don't know if this sounds negative, but also to look a certain way, to kind of respect the title, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's like any other sport, right? I mean, you wouldn't expect Ronaldo to not look like Ronaldo. Like, he's a professional soccer player. He's one of the best in the world. Like, you expect him to look a certain way, expect him, and obviously perform a certain way as well, because that's kind of more along the lines of the sport. But like, I think it completely makes sense. And I think that there's a lot of different athletes out there who do hit that goal of like becoming a pro, whether that's bodybuilding or, man, I finally got drafted into the NBA, and then it's like, oh man, we've made it. How do you stay like excited about that, man, I'm a pro, but also don't let it get to your head that now I'm a pro, I can kind of, I'm a pro kind of thing. Like, how do you balance those two?
For me personally, and I mean, this is kind of true, when you're competing in the NPC and you're competing at a national level, you're kind of like the best of the best. And then you turn pro and you're at the bottom. I mean, so for me, there's not an issue of getting a big head because I'm a pro, just because I know I have a lot of improving to do to be competitive as a pro. And that's what I want. I don't just want the title. I want to really be competitive.
And when you hit that, that milestone, you get your pro card, was it ever a conversation that you had with yourself or with a coach or maybe with, a husband or with a friend or with whoever about like, well, I hit this, but if I don't win anything in the next 10 years, well, I still want to do it. Or if I don't, like, do you have that thought yet, or have you had that kind of internal conversation or set a level of like expectation or future kind of, not worst case scenario, but like, okay, if this doesn't happen, if I can't win a show, if I can't place top whatever within X amount of time, maybe it's just not for me, or have you gone to that point yet?
Not really. So there was definitely, before I turned pro, a conversation in my own head of, am I meant to do this? Is this something I want to do? Because it is, it's an extreme thing, and there are certain things that you may have to miss out on, or you're just living your life differently than the average person. And like I said, there was a lot of pressure this prep. So there was definitely conversations with myself of, am I meant to do this? But presently, I don't have a timeline. I don't have an age or a certain number of years. I just, obviously I'm not going to do it forever, but there are things that I definitely want to accomplish and think I'm capable of accomplishing, before I kind of hang up the hat. But another thing that I have kind of been thinking recently is, once it stops being something I do for me, I definitely want to be done. I don't want to do this for other people.
And what are some of those milestones? Obviously, everybody wants to go to the Olympia when you turn pro, but like, what are some of the other things that you've kind of like maybe set out or just in your head, been like, these are some good points on the road to leading me to that final destination?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, like you said, everyone wants to, win a show and go to the Olympia. I think for me, thinking about my pro debut, gosh, I don't even know. I think it kind of depends on the progress I make. But of course, I want to be like in the top 10 of a show. I think if I can do that, that would definitely be an accomplishment that I would feel proud of.
And are there certain shows that you, as a pro, look forward to having the opportunity to compete at? Or is it kind of just like a show is an opportunity in and of itself and it doesn't really matter?
For me, definitely, it's just the fact that I even have the opportunity to compete at any pro level show that in itself is enough for me.
Yeah. And do you have people that you look forward to competing against? Is there anybody out there that you're like, oh man, I really just want to stand up there or even backstage, be kind of, in their presence and kind of learn from how they do things a little bit and things like that?
There are definitely certain people that I would probably be like awestruck to be in their presence. So, but there's certain people that I'm like, I don't want to compete against them because they've been, top 3 in the Olympia the past 5 years. So, oh my gosh. But at the same time, that would be incredible to even be on the same stage as someone who's competed at the Olympia. So,
yeah. And is there a specific person that you do kind of look up to in regards to obviously the Olympia winner is always the person you want to look up to and like, I want to be like that or, I want to achieve that. But specific athlete in regards to just maybe you love how they look and you think, okay, I kind of have a similar makeup of them. And if I can gain that look, I feel like I can have made a lot of progress. Or maybe it's even something as simple as just like, I like their personality, maybe how they are on social media I can connect to or anything like that.
Of course, the first person that comes to mind is Gillen. I think she's amazing, and I've never met her, but just the way she carries herself on social media and different sort of videos or things that she's done, I think she's incredible, not only as an athlete, but she seems to have a lot of humility, and I think that's very important. So
yeah. We actually had the honor of having her on the podcast at the beginning of the year.
She's incredible. So if I was ever at a show with her, I would be like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah. It's so funny how people, there's just that like dominance in a sport, because a sport really obviously is something that's man-made. It's something that could very easily have never been created. And then when it's created and somebody becomes dominant and somebody becomes like somewhat famous off of it, or maybe even very famous off of that sport, it's like, what would that person have been without this sport, right? I think that's something really interesting. And usually the most successful people in any given thing are going to be successful in anything, right?
Absolutely. I think the fundamentals that make you successful as a bodybuilder make you successful in your career, in your relationships. So I think some people just have a drive to be the absolute best, and so they're going to be in whatever they do.
And I think that there's something about learning and putting yourself into that learning environment that makes you more adaptable to how can I place these skills in other parts of my life too.
Yeah, definitely. I would totally agree with that.
In regards to the next, several months of this year, what are the specific goals or specific things that you have outlined?
Yeah, so I've actually been out of the gym for about almost 5 weeks, and I have about another week to go, and I should be cleared to kind of train at full intensity again. And so we definitely want to put on some size in order for me to be competitive as a pro. I definitely need more back width and density, rear delts, abs. My quads seem to be the quickest thing to grow, so just kind of making sure that we balance and keep that figure symmetry that we need. So I think the next phase is just growing as much as we can, and then sort of reevaluating probably in the spring of the next steps.
Yeah. Well, best of luck in the upcoming, months and really, I guess, years to come, because bodybuilding is such a long-term build. Literally building the body takes so much time, and especially at that pro level, but best of luck.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's pros and cons to being more attention on bodybuilding now because people do it for different reasons, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be frustrating, like if people are solely doing it kind of to post it. I'm definitely excited for the future of bodybuilding and kind of seeing just the growth that's going to happen with the sport. I think it's great to have more people involved and seeing people push themselves to reach their full potential. I mean, what's better than that, So
yeah, it was great getting to chat with you today. I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you so much. It was a great time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And if you want to, before we head out, if you want to share your social media or anything like that, you can.
Okay, yeah, for sure. So I really just use Instagram, and my name is Jess Briggs _
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.